This is an introduction to DB Hammer, and I'm Clayton Thompson. For those of you who don't know me, I currently am an integrated performance coach with the Los Angeles Dodgers, and I'm putting this on YouTube because DB Hammer, the best sports training book ever, is everyone's favorite book, and no one talks about it, and I don't know why. No one knows who the author is. Dietrich-Heinz Buchenholz is a pen name. It doesn't exist. It's Fugazi. Many have speculated it's Jay Schrader, but he denies it. People believe it's Jay Schrader because the man who wrote this book, or the woman, but it's a man's name, so I think it would be a man, but, has a lot of the same parallels to Jay Schrader. This isn't unbelievable, as calculus was discovered at the same time twice. Being a strength coach isn't as hard as discovering calculus, so it seems very feasible to me. Many coaches use the material and use it daily. They love it. They talk about it all the time. Rob Assisi mentions it in his TFC presentation. Dan Fichter mentions it every time he talks in a presentation. Chris Korfis loves this book. Cal's co-contraction training is literally neural rate training. So some of your favorite exercises are from this book. People steal stuff in strength conditioning. It's really sad, but it happens. So I'm going to start off with this idea of pretension. So pretension is both a Frans Bosch and DB Hammer idea. DB doesn't mention it directly in his book, but he talks about how the job of the body, the first job is to generate tension. He says tension. My mind was immediately drawn to Frans Bosch's pretension. Frans talks a lot about how pretension is the precursor to energy transfer. Your muscles don't just sit slack on your skeleton when they're there. To move, they have to be taught, okay? It's like if you were pulling something out of a ditch, okay, you would make sure that your rope is as tight to that thing as possible. Like my phone's right here. Like if I had a rope when I was trying to pull my phone out of something, I would make sure that rope is tight before I would pull. I would not snap it because then it would break. Okay, I would not have it be loose and snap it. It would break. It would go everywhere. It wouldn't work. Okay, but if I'm trying to put the most amount of energy possible into my phone when I'm pulling it out of wherever it is, okay, I'm going to slowly tension it. Okay, and then I'm going to put as much force into that rope as possible and transfer the most amount of energy I can into my phone to pull it out wherever it is. According to Frans, I believe him, Frans is a pretty smart guy, this cannot be trained with normal methods of a barbell on your back. When the barbell is, just a barbell. It can't be trained with a barbell. So what happens when you have an external load acting upon the body automatically takes out the tension, okay? But not in a good way. The barbell rests on my back, and I'm sitting there. And in order to do any form of physical activity, I need to be tensioned because there's an external load. Okay, so if I'm about to squat it, okay, my quads are already contracting, okay, to extend my knee because of the weight. I haven't learned how to take out the tension on my own. And that is a very important precursor to athletic movement. All right. So, next big idea. Training the nervous system. DB loves the nervous system. Talks about it all the time. That's what this whole book is about. It controls everything. Every single cell. Every single muscle fiber. You name it. That's controlled by the nervous system. So, the other big idea that goes along with this in this book is, well, there are actually two. One of them is the inverted size principle. So, when you're performing eccentric or isometric contractions, not concentric contractions, the first motor unit to be contracted is the highest threshold motor unit possible. This is because modern strength conditioning is focused on concentric movement. No one studies eccentric or isometric movement at all. And that's actually the opposite of what is taught in schools. Everyone's taught it's the smallest motor units first, then the biggest. Well, sport is mostly eccentric and isometric movement. So it's actually opposite. It's pretty cool. The other one is that there is no such thing as a fast twitch or slow twitch muscle fiber. There's only a fast twitch impulse. If the impulse that activates my muscle is fast twitch, eventually it will turn into a fast twitch muscle fiber. Also pretty cool. So you can change yourself into a twitchy athlete given enough time. Nervous system communication with muscles limits performance. Okay? Doesn't matter how fast my nervous system sends the activation potential from my spinal cord or my brain, depending on what's going on, if my muscle cannot receive the message well. If Pony Express doesn't get it to my house, like it doesn't matter how quickly it gets to the local FedEx. Okay, if it takes 20 days to go from my local FedEx to my house, it's no good. Okay, we want the parcel to be delivered as quickly as possible to the muscle so it can contract as quickly as possible afterwards. We can train that. So, there's this thing called the muscle spring. Okay, and it really is this idea that muscles and tendons work together as a unit. It's not one, it's not the other, they are together. The tendon connects the muscle to the bone. So, when a muscle contracts at really high speeds, it is contracting isometrically. It is mainly the tendon that is either shortening or lengthening. And that is what transfers energy. That is the stress shortening cycle. I've talked about that before in a previous video. You're welcome to go back and watch it. So, once again, I'm going to use a metaphor, all right? No more phone, though. Let's pretend I have a rubber band, okay? It's right here. It's right in my hand. And I want the rubber band to fly that way, okay? So I'm going to lengthen it, pull it back, and snap with this hand, okay? It is going to snap out of my left hand. So that is a springy muscle, okay? It had a fixed point. Fixed. This fixed point is the muscle itself. It is isometrically contracting. It does not move. It is fixed. My tendon is moving. That is the snap, the pizzazz, the punch, whatever, the elastic energy transfer. It doesn't matter. It pulls, it lengthens, snap. Okay, perfect. That is exactly what we need to do. It snaps right back into place. It is a spring. Okay, if it bunches this way, up against the muscle that is also isometrically contracting, the tendon shortens and then boom, it expands right back to the way it was. That is exactly what we want to have happen to transfer elastic energy. The muscle and tendon work together. I did not understand this for a long time. Long time. All right. So, voluntary versus involuntary contraction. 90% of all movements are involuntary. Okay? You might not believe me at first, but let's talk about this for a second. Think about how many reflexes happen at a single time. Okay? You're not going to follow with me, but that's okay. When I'm sitting in this chair, upright, right now, okay? I thought about sitting upright, okay? I engaged, my erectors, my glutes a little bit in order to sit up like this, okay? Probably some things in my back. I thought about it. What I didn't think about was the 40 or 50 stabilizer muscles that kicked in to keep me balanced. My right calf, I just noticed, was a little tensed because I'm sitting up and I'm sitting on my tippy toes. I didn't think about that. That is purely reflexive. Okay? Think about falling over. You ever fallen down the stairs before? Well, maybe not fallen, but when you reach out and grab that handrail, you don't think about it. It just happens. You kick your foot out, you start flailing when you go back. You're not thinking about it. It is reflexive. That is reflexive movement. Happens all the time, no matter what you were doing. Those stabilizers kick in and they want to keep you upright. You need to train that reflexive movement. It happens 90% of the time. If you only train the voluntary 10%, you're missing out on 90% of what you should be training. Power, speed, and strength all benefit from reflexive firing. There's around a 40% improvement. Okay, you need to be training reflexively in a reflexive manner to get this 40% benefit, and we'll go into why in a second. So, this was another great idea in the book, appropriation of weight. Okay, when you do a back squat, you're using your weight, your body weight, plus the weight on your back. That's why when I bench 315, it's still heavy. Like, don't get me wrong, that's pretty close to my max. That's as close as I can pretty much get, like, to a true 1RM. Like, my real 1RM is like 325, but like 315, like, we are struggling. But the weight, like, itself feels lighter. It doesn't have the same oomph when I go down. I hope you guys are following. But like when I'm back squatting, I'm like, holy, like my legs, everything is destroyed when I back squat. But my arms, like, they don't weigh that much. So when they go down, like, I'm only benching like my arms plus 325. Okay? And so if you're a strength coach and you're using percentages, you should use this appropriated percentage that factors in the amount of body weight that goes into one repetition. It is a much more accurate, and it is a real picture of what's going on, and your athletes are going to recover better because they're using the actual weight that's being lifted, not the percent that's closer to the real 1RM. And it's not that big of a difference. Like, you can see, I did the math. My appropriated weight for my bench, instead of doing 260, it's 252. So it's not like you've been messing your athletes up, but it's still a very good idea. All right, importance of stretching force. So stretching is reflexive, okay? So we're going to go into that in a second, but stretching is reflexive. So you have to remember, this and reflexive movement kind of go together. This pairing of movement gets us into rebounds. Increase in stretching force will result in greater neural and muscular involvement. Makes sense. If I stretch stuff, the stretch reflex is induced, okay? That is a big benefit that people have known about for a really long time. The greatest stretching force happens from 51 to 74% appropriated weight, 1RM. It really bothers me that this is not 50 to 75%. Really, really bothers me. But we're going to move on. I won't, because I'll remember this forever, but we'll move on in the presentation. Okay. Rebounds. Rebounds combine, synthesize, whatever, this reflexive firing with unconscious movement that is stretched. Okay, together it gets a really, really big benefit. So DAC rebound benching 315 on Instagram, whatever. You've seen the rebounds before. Here's why it's such a big idea. Turns on the nervous system more, turns on the muscular system more, bigger stretching, you're training reflexive movement. Those are four really, really big things that you should probably do all the time. So the premise, the line from the book is, if the agonistic tension constituents are relaxed immediately prior to the impact of force on the system, then a greater rise in neural force reaction to this impulse will result. I can't even say it. This book is brutal. Brutal. But we're going to go through what that means right now. So if the agonistic, we'll start word by word. If the agonistic tension constituents are relaxed immediately prior to the impact of force on the system. Boom. One sentence. He did not need to make this a run-on, but he did. So we'll just start with the rebound bench press. I rebound bench right before I catch the barbell. My pecs are relaxed. My triceps are relaxed. Those are the two main movers in bench. You can say delts, whatever. Everything's relaxed in the front, okay, because I'm pulling down. My posterior is engaged. My biceps are engaged. I'm pulling down. Okay? It's relaxed. Then a much greater rise in neural force reaction to this impulse will result. So the impulse is me catching. Okay? So that is the impulse. So from the impulse, a much greater rise in neural force reaction will result. So I will be able to bench more. Okay? That is what that sentence means. It's a very, very important sentence, and that is why everyone loves rebounds. This is a reflexive response. It is not conscious. Rebounds train this reflex. So, anecdotal evidence that I have. We were doing med ball throws or bench press throws on a VBT system at TCU, and I was throwing more weight around than the other guys. I was talking a little trash, whatever. And Dakin comes down, and we're talking, and I'm like, what if I did a rebound? And he's like, Jay Schrader. I love Dakin. He's like, Jay Schrader, like laughing at me. And then I'm like, ha ha ha, Jay Schrader. Like, I was so in on him. Still kind of am, but we're not going there. and I start rebound benching, and my meters per second go up like 0.2, like 0.3. It's not like a little bit. It goes up a lot from rebounding, and it's because when it catches and you feel that stretch, it's a big boy stretch, like right in the front of your chest, and you're able to throw that thing way, way further. So I recommend if you're doing like any sort of like lighter type throw, type like anything that you're comfortable catching, you should do a rebound. You should. Not dumbbells. Not saying dumbbells. No. There's too much going on. But light barbells, med balls, like the supine med ball throw. Everyone loves a supine med ball throw with a partner drop. That's literally a rebound. Okay? Everyone loves that exercise. It's great. Great exercise. Maybe this is why. If you have, $10 million prospect, and he drops this weight on his chest, you're going to get fired. Okay? He's going to break something. It's worth $10 million. Probably shouldn't do, there's a reason why a lot of the people who train people that aren't worth anything, they get to have fun and do all the fun stuff that might get people injured. It's because they're not worth anything. No offense. I'm a nobody. I did all the fun stuff. Okay? But with someone that's worth $10, $20 million, you can't have them blow out their knee playing knockout or breaking their sternum from a rebound bench press. All right? So just be smart. Be smart. All right, this is the last thing I have. This is a very big idea. I'm going to read the quote first, then we'll talk about the implications. As the rate of force present is appropriate, parentheses, speed, power and speed circumstances, then the muscle fibers will actually lock up at the opportune instance to offer a strong and stable effect, as the elastic elements will act as the major propellant, parentheses, spring. Okay, I freaked out when I read this because a light bulb went off in my head, and that doesn't happen very often. So we're going to go through, think idea by idea in this again. As the rate of force present is appropriate. So honestly, I think that's just, we're throwing that out. I don't even know. Appropriate to what? It's all in context. Okay? Then the muscle fibers will actually lock up at the opportune instance. So I'm going to refer back to the parentheses. Power and speed circumstances. Okay? So this happens when it's either powerful or there's a lot of speed. Okay? What do we know about power and speed? In my mind, when I think power and speed, I think isometric muscle contraction. I think stretch shortening cycle. Both of those things have to do with power and speed. So we know that the muscle contracts isometrically and the tendon lengthens. Okay? Or tendon shortens. Either way, elastic energy transfer. Whatever you want to, it's fine. So muscle fibers will lock up at the opportune instance to offer a stable effect. Okay, so we're still thinking, stability here, isometric, elastic energy transfer will act as the major propellant. Okay, that's word for word, that's pretty much what we've talked about before. But hearing it like this made me think, okay? It made me think about a big bench press, okay? So when I'm benching, right at the bottom of my bench press, okay, 325, I get a big, there's a lot of tension in my pecs and in my triceps. I get a big, oomph right at the bottom. I slingshot it up. My bench, my butt comes off the bench, slingshot engaged, okay? Right there. And so my muscle fibers have the most amount of tension in them, but they're not contracting. They're already past their optimal length of contraction down here. They are isometrically firing to stay at their optimal zone of lengthening. Okay? So if muscles get too far extended, they're out of their optimal zones. They can't fire as fast or as hard. Okay? Does that make sense? All right? So when you do a back bridge, all the way over your back, how strong do your abs feel? Not that strong. Okay? But if you stay stacked, you're able to rotate, you're able to side bend, you're able to do a lot of stuff. That's optimal zone of lengthening 101. All right? And so at the bottom of this bench press, I'm not lengthening my pecs anymore. I think I am, but they're not lengthening. My rib cage might be going like this, but they are staying tight so I can bench all this weight. and they're acting as stable as possible to allow my everything, all the tendons and the elastic elements in my upper body to fire that bench up and get that weight up. That was the first thing I thought of. And so, in the pitching delivery, Randy Sullivan talks about this in his Savage Training ebook. I'm not going to give him a plug, but you can go read it if you want. He talks about how stability is an indicator of high velocity throwing. I didn't really get that. But after reading this quote, it makes me think that stability is such a big idea because the muscle fibers are remaining still. Okay? And so stability to me means being still. Like I'm stable here. If my arm is up at 90 degrees and I'm flexing everything as I can, like you can't move me that easily. But if I'm moving, if things are happening, I am not very stable. And it is because my muscle fibers are not locked up. And so Randy looks for stability in like 8 or 9 movement sequences because that's where the energy transfer occurs. And if I'm moving my pelvis, okay, and I'm transferring energy, like I need to be stable in my legs, like a stable base to transfer energy. People talk about that a lot. And the stability allows these tendons to lengthen. Like, well, I never thought of throwing as something you needed to be stable for. It always seems to happen so fast. I mean, people have said it, but I didn't really get why. And this is the why. If you are stable, your muscles can contract, and the elastic elements, they can transfer energy. That is what being stable is all about. So if you have an unstable back foot, your muscle fibers cannot isometrically contract and allow you to transfer energy. Okay? And that's during leg lift. Okay? Your front leg, if it's not stable when you hit the ground, aka your front knee is collapsing, your muscles cannot isometrically contract and allow elastic energy to transfer from the ground into your pelvis, into your torso, so on and so forth. Whoa. That's a very, very big idea. Elastic elements need to produce force and react against the imposing force with tremendous energy. Once again, thinking about the front leg. Like if I'm trying to react against the huge amounts of ground reaction force that are happening on my front leg during foot plant, I need to be doing it elastically. My front leg has to be stable. Has to. Otherwise, like if I'm rocking back and forth side to side, I'm never going to be able to transfer this energy. And so how do we train it? Well, my mind immediately goes to water bags. That's where I'm at. I mean, that's unstable load, training stability, patterns that are pretty close to, a baseball throw. I'm going water bags. What else am I doing? I'm probably doing unilateral exercises that force stability. So driving single leg output on like a leg press, except that has external stability, so not that. I'm probably like a weighted like single leg rear foot elevated split squat catch. But just you need to be stable. You have to be stable to transfer this energy. And so that's something I'm going to look for now that I wasn't before. Because I didn't know how big of a deal it was. And I'm gonna keep thinking about ways that I can train this. Like it's not like I'm not just gonna be okay with like, oh, just water bags. Like no. There has to be more. But unstable loads seem like the first like no shit moment. But yeah, this is my introduction to DB Hammer. I'm probably going to do another video on this, so stay tuned. If you like the video, please let me know. If you have any questions, engage with me on Twitter. I like replies to Twitter because, people learn, and I like helping people learn because where would I be without that? I'm just a nobody. So thank you for watching.